So the third precondition of intelligibility here that Lyle lays out, in addition to consistency, and so the third of these three criterion we need for a consistent worldview, for a worldview that's reliable, that we can accept, in addition to consistency and the preconditions of intelligibility that we just discussed, is being it must be non-arbitrary. What does this mean? It means believing in something is not the same as knowing something. In order for a belief to count as knowledge, a person needs to have a good reason for a true belief, says Lyle. It can't be an arbitrarily held belief. Therefore, it's not possible to have knowledge of something without having a reason for it. A position of belief must be justifiable. So that's what's meant by being non-arbitrary. If you cannot provide a reasonable explanation for why what you believe is true, is real, then your belief is arbitrary. It's baseless. It's a baseless faith or belief or worldview. The belief in evolution in billions of years is an arbitrary belief. It's not justifiable. It's not based on anything concrete. The myth of evolution in billions of years fails to provide any explanation at all for why we can know and know with certainty, for why there are laws of logic, uniformity in nature, reliable senses, reliable memory, morality, etc. If an evolutionist and/or an old earther believes in any of these preconditions, they are being arbitrary because they do not have a reasonable explanation for them, having denied biblical Christianity, which is, the Christian Bible is the only source that offers an explanation for these things. Lyle writes, if we don't have a reason to believe something, in this case, thinking of the preconditions of intelligibility, then we don't really know it. Those who deny biblical creation do not have a reason for the things they take for granted within their worldview, and thus they could not really know any of these things if their professed worldview were true. To the extent that unbelievers know anything, it's because they're ultimately relying on biblical creation, which makes their position arbitrary. We're going to go on with Jason Lyle to explore just how it is that if the Bible were not true, then we could not know anything. We're going to explore how only the Bible, only biblical creation accounts for these three criteria for an acceptable rational worldview. Only the Bible provides the reason, the justification for the things we take for granted, things we depend upon to know anything for sure: memory, senses, logic, laws of nature, morality, dignity, freedom, etc. Only the Bible, only biblical creation is non-arbitrary and is a fully justified worldview. So to recap, a worldview has to meet three criteria to be viable, to be a good rational worldview. What are they? Consistency, not self-defeating or hypocritical; non-arbitrary, but justifiable, being rooted in certain knowledge; and thirdly, able to know what is believed with certainty because the worldview itself provides the basic tools for knowledge, the preconditions of intelligibility. So these three criteria make plain that only the Bible provides such a reasonable worldview, so that the ultimate proof of creation is that without biblical creation, we could not know anything and or know for sure. So this may yet be challenging for us to wrap our minds around, given the world we live in, given the weakness of our flesh and the attacks of doubt from the evil one. So we're going to camp out here for a while and think it all through with Jason Lyle. As Lyle points out, because of the ultimate proof of creation, that without the Bible, without biblical creation and the biblical creator God, we can't know anything for sure, it becomes clear to us that to even debate creation versus evolution is like debating the existence of air. The creationist is like the person arguing for air's existence, and the evolution. So the creationist is arguing for air's existence, and the evolutionist is like a person arguing that air doesn't exist. In order to defend his position, the evolutionist must use creation. In order to defend his position that there is no air, he has to use air to refute it, or else he couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything. That is, the evolutionist takes for granted the preconditions of knowledge, including natural laws, his five senses, reliability, etc., things that only Genesis 1 to 11 actually provide the basis for, in order to make his case against Genesis 1 to 11. That is, just as the person needs to use air to argue against the existence of air, the evolutionist relies upon the biblical God and the Bible itself in order to argue against the biblical God and his book, the Bible. The evolutionist lives and moves and has his being in the God he's arguing against. The evolutionist depends on his creator to uphold his senses and memory and the laws of nature and logic in order to be able to argue against God and his word. The rebel against his maker actually needs his maker to be able to rebel against him. I think we call this biting the hand that's feeding, like a baby throwing a fit at his mother, or cutting off the branch one's sitting on, or, as in this picture and the one on the previous slide, destroying the foundation under your own feet. In a way, this is an obvious and ridiculous situation that anyone who fights against his creator and sustainer is in, but we often don't give it a thought. But our Creator God, like a good mother to her infant, is patient and gracious with his children in their foolish warfare against him, that is, up until a point. So as Lyle puts it, in order for the critic of error to be able to make an argument, it would have to be wrong. That is, to contend with the Bible is immediately to defeat oneself. Put simply, God's word is truth. Therefore, anyone who argues against it is wrong by definition. The biblical Christian worldview is the only accurate, true, real, correct worldview. And as Lyle concludes, ironically, the fact that evolutionists are able to argue against creation proves that creation is true. This is because an evolutionist, as we said, must assume the preconditions of intelligibility in order to make an argument. But those preconditions that we take for granted are explained only by the Bible. Evolution, men's ideas, can't explain them. Only God can supply those basic conditions that enable humans to know things. So let's join Jason Lyle in looking at 3 of these basic preconditions of intelligibility as examples for us that God provides us children of Adam as human beings to help us better understand this ultimate proof of creation.